You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
So, this week, Chris O'Brien is a recovering... He's waiting to say recovering what? You notice how the pause is what refreshes us here. So let's try it again. Chris O'Brien is a recovering... Fill in the blank.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say, Gene. I'm recovering from 16 months of sitting in one chair in one place and growing roots.
Yes, but you go outside for smoke breaks.
I do.
I have to get on you for that. I just read how Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock, is suffering from a lung disease because he was once a heavy smoker, but that was 30 years previously. So he's now a guy in his early 80s. He gave up smoking in his 50s, and he still suffered the consequences. Chris, what do we do about you?
Switch me to an e-cigarette, which is what I'm doing. I'm weaning myself over to e-cigarettes.
Okay.
I love my nicotine.
But with e-cigarettes, you can smoke them inside because we don't let anybody smoke in this residence.
Yeah. Your point being?
I don't like the odor. Anyway, seriously, we don't let anybody smoke in my car either, by the way. All right, so he'll tell us about his e-cigarettes. I guess also he's going to feel more relaxed now because of the fact that the book is done. And we went through this long period of corrections.
Oh, boy, did we.
And you can bet that the people buying the book, a few early adopters, will go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Any typo they find, they'll scream about. But that's preposterous. Because nothing is perfect.
Well, especially since the book is almost 500,000 words. I don't want to scare potential readers off, but it's about as extensive and comprehensive as the subject will allow.
And we didn't make the type too small for readability. We kept it reasonable size type.
Yeah, but it's not, one of those books where you have a space and a half between lines. This is definitely a tome, I think would be the term. It's at the printer. And I've signed off on it. They're printing it hopefully today as we speak. It should be ready to ship out early next week, towards the middle of the week. And I'm really excited. I put really a lot of time and effort and energy into this. And I had the help of Gene and a couple of editors, a couple of proofreaders. And, because Ventures Unlimited does not have an editorial department or a proofreader, I took it upon myself to create as perfect a book as I could, and I did have help. So, as I've mentioned to several people, I think this book will be around a lot longer than I will be. So, I wanted to make it as perfect as possible, and I'm very proud of it. I really have a sense that this is going to be the go-to book on the subject from here on out.
Well, if you don't give up on smoking, it may outlive you. I certainly hope you do. All right. You see, I'm really digging it into him.
Yeah, you are. Well, I feel good. I feel like a tremendous weight has been lifted off my head. My attitude is better. I'm not so preoccupied. I'm almost at a point where I'm not quite sure what to do with myself. I am starting work, or have begun researching the follow-up to Stalking the Herd, which is tentatively titled Stalking the Stalkers. Kind of ironic title. But I really feel that a complete analysis of the first book is really important to put all that information into an analytical context. And David Perkins and I are going to be co-writing this follow-up book, which will analyze the 600 pages that the first book presents, all the data, and now we have to analyze it. I did not have room to put in an extensive analysis of the data. I do put in my 2 cents worth, especially in the final chapter, chapter 12. I do go in depth on some of my own theories, but that's not to say that more analytical work shouldn't be done. I really do feel that it needs to be really put into a think tank situation and really come up with some trends, patterns. We've already identified some that I'm very excited about where the analytical process is going, and we're already hard at work on it.
I was thinking about maybe the title of the sequel. Why don't you call it After the Herd? You have Stalking the Herd, After the Herd. You know, you do like movies. You come up with a title like that. After the Herd, Before the Herd, do the prequel. You know, now it's prequels. And then, of course, 5 years from now, we have the reboot.
Right.
Which is Stalking the Herd Begins.
The Herd Lives.
Oh,
well, there, I can't help but notice in the news today, there's an announcement by the state of Virginia that they're expanding their, I guess, monitoring deer herds in the state of Virginia. They've expanded the areas that they think the chronic wasting disease has spread to. And this is going to be something that we're going to be hearing time and time again over the coming years of how TSC, or transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, is spreading through the wild deer and elk populations, and there's no end in sight with it. If you're a hunter and you're east of the Rockies, you have to have the head tested. You should not render that animal and eat it without being completely sure that it's free of chronic wasting disease.
And the biggest disease of all will be learning how to pronounce the name of that disease. It's going to be real difficult.
Transmissible spongiform encephalopathy.
Okay. I want to say something about the show we had with J.C. Johnson a few weeks ago. And he was kidding there about Bigfoot scat. Okay? And he used a few other words for that stuff.
Poop.
So I made a few silly remarks. Unfortunately, one listener took that seriously, took umbrage on my attempts to make light of scat, okay? Make scat lighter rather than being a heavy subject to deal with. He said that guy should be fired. And since, of course, I'm the owner of the company, I wrote him back and said, I'll tell you what, just don't listen. I don't have time for this, really. All this aggravation over a few sentences. Wow, you made a fuss over it, okay?
Well, that's all right, Gene. You don't want to poop on the parade and kind of lower the bar of civility.
I think his letter was poop. Okay? There we go. I said it, ladies and gentlemen, and that's it. Let's stop right here before we get in trouble. Let's look at our guest for today. And once again, after an excursion back to UFOs last week with Dr. Bruce Maccabee, this week we're going to cryptozoology. We're going to strange creatures. And we're going to talk with a writer and a musician, a guy named Lyle Blackburn. And he's got a new book out about the lizard man.
Pretty fascinating. I went through the book quickly, and I was amazed at the outbreak of sightings in South Carolina in 1988-89. It was national news. CBS News went down there. I think the Today Show did a live feed from down there. Pretty interesting stuff. I can't wait to get into it with Lyle about this and find out more. This is really quite a compelling subject that you don't hear much about. Of course, you hear about Bigfoot all the time now. We hear about, flying creatures, flying humanoids, and other types of high strange categories of sightings. But lizard men is not something that you normally hear about. And the book is filled with a bunch of interesting reports that have surfaced all the way back into the 1800s. And it's quite fascinating and a real head scratcher, I must say.
Okay. The book is called Lizard Man, but Lyle Blackburn has written another book called The Beast of Boggy Creek.
The Fouke
wow.
Monster.
So that one has a foreword by Lauren Coleman. This one has a foreword from Nick Redfern. So he's in good company.
Yes.
The guest is Lyle Blackburn. He'll be on with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracasts.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, Tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's the number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Hi, this is Steve Spillum for Midas Resources. In 1971, President Nixon took the United States off the gold standard and put us into a fiat currency. This allowed Congress and the Federal Reserve to create trillions of dollars out of thin air. The national debt has risen to incredible heights, and your hard-earned dollars by a small fraction of what they once did. The average life expectancy for a fiat currency is 27 years. The dollar is failing and on borrowed time. When currencies fall, people turn to gold and silver because gold and silver have been real money for more than 5,000 years. It is our mission at Midas Resources to help you preserve your capital. Don't let your personal savings shrink to nothing. For important free information on how you can protect your personal wealth, contact me, Steve Spillum, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 308. Call today while we are still accepting dollars for gold and silver. 1-800-686-2237, extension 308. Make a change in your financial security today. That's 1-800-686-2237, extension 308.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, listen carefully. Sweeping changes to IRS policies will help more people than ever eliminate their tax debts once and for all. And now, thanks to Dan Pilla, you can get the tax help you need to end your tax nightmare.
Hi, I'm Dan Pilla. I've helped thousands of people reduce or eliminate tax debts they couldn't pay. And after more than 30 years of experience dealing with the IRS, I can tell you there's no such thing as a hopeless tax case. With the IRS's new policies, it's easier than ever to put your tax debt behind you once and for all. Call now at 800-346-6829 to learn how I can help you. You know your IRS debt will not go away by itself, but you don't have to live in fear anymore. Call 800-346-6829. Learn how I can help you eliminate wage and bank levies, release tax liens, and negotiate a settlement with the IRS that will put your tax nightmare behind you forever. Call 800-34-NO-TAX or go to my website, taxhelponline.com. That's taxhelponline.com.
Positive results from satisfied customers of Heart and Body Extract continue to pour into our website, hbextract.com.
This is Al from New Jersey. One day I saw your ad for Heart and Body Extract, and it mentioned that it would help me with angina, so I decided to order. I figure I had nothing to lose.
Heart and Body Extract supplies your body with everything it needs to balance itself and maintain optimal heart and circulatory health with no negative side effects.
I took the formula 3 times a day as directed, and I kid you not, within 4 days, my angina pain was completely gone.
Order HB Extract by calling 866-295-5305 or online at hbextract.com. That's 866-295-5305 or hbextract.com.
I could not believe it actually stopped the pain. Heart and Body Extract actually works. This is just an amazing product. Even the numbness in my hands is completely gone.
Heart and Body Extract for a long and healthy life.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
We introduced to our listeners of the Paracast Lyle Blackburn, and he's involved in cryptozoology. He's also a musician. And we're going to talk about his latest book, which is called Lizard Man, but also the previous book from a couple of years back called The Beast of Boggy Creek. So that creature is from Arkansas. The new one, The Lizard Man, is from South Carolina. Lyle, welcome to the Paracast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Before we get underway with looking for strange creatures, which we do from time to time on the Paracast, tell our listeners about your background. What got you interested with legends about monsters?
Well, it was definitely one of those things I was interested in at a very young age. You know, I always loved monsters and loved horror movies, but I especially gravitated towards things that were presumably real, cryptozoology creatures, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, things like that, ghosts, Bermuda Triangle. When I was a kid, I watched all those sorts of shows. And it was just sort of a lifelong interest. And I read books and things like that. As an adult, I became a writer. And in doing so, I began to look back at a lot of these things and started looking more in depth into the cases, and it fascinated me, and so that became something I wanted to write about, and that led to the first book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, because I had seen a movie as a kid called The Legend of Boggy Creek, which it was based on some real sightings in Arkansas. So that's kind of where I started, and that was very well received, and so I decided to keep up with that, and that's what led me to the Lizard Man case.
Our listeners will want to know, do you have a day job?
Not so to speak. I'm a freelance writer, so I still, I don't make a living writing the books completely. I do other, freelance things. I'm a writer for the magazine Rue Morgue. It's a popular horror magazine, you can pick up at Barnes and Nobles and places like that. So I have a column in there, and I write for that magazine. I played in bands for years, fairly semi-pro, and we toured all over the world and stuff. So I still get a lot of royalties off the music. So all combined, that sort of is my job, plus monster hunting.
Okay, now in choosing which monsters to explore, do you look at recent legends and stories, or do you just pick out something that happens to interest you?
Well, a lot of it is dependent on where I'm located. In the case of both of my books, I definitely wanted to go to these areas and do research. I don't want to sit on the internet and try to write a book like that. So, I need to concentrate. I live in Texas, so, starting with the Boggy Creek monster, that was just across the border in Arkansas. So definitely a place that I could visit the areas where it was sighted, interview people in the actual area. And, I've visited places like Honey Island Swamp, where there's the Honey Island Swamp monster in Louisiana, and on over to the southeast where the South Carolina, where the Bishopville Lizard Man is. So that's kind of where I concentrate and what I choose. I love tales of lake monsters, and of course, Loch Ness or Lake Morar over there in Scotland, but they're so far away, and I like to do firsthand research that most of the time what I write about is going to be in the south or southeast U.S.
Now, are creature sightings like this focus more on particular regions of the U.S.? I'm thinking about other monsters like the Flatwoods Monster in West Virginia. We're thinking, of course, about also Mothman.
Right. Those would be, regional creatures, so to speak. And if you were to write a book on the Mothman, you would go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and you would, go from there. My books have been very focused in that I've explored sightings of a creature that occurred over a many number of years, X number of years in a certain area, rather than writing a book on Bigfoot or something where I just talk about sightings worldwide or even in the U.S. or something like that. And I think it's one reason my books have been successful, but also, one reason that sets me apart is because rather than just try to write these, encyclopedias of cryptozoology monsters and briefly mention something, I really dig into a case and bring forward details and a lot of time witness sightings that nobody has ever heard of, because nobody, really went and spent so much time digging around, at the location. So, mine are very focused on a certain case, which is to me is more fascinating to really bring out all the details.
Lyle, one thing that I noticed in your book is that you do go back and do some historical research and mention some pretty interesting cases and sighting claims that go all the way back into the 1800s. Perhaps this is a good place to give our listeners a bit of a background on this particular described creature, which I don't think very many people are aware of how many sightings of these strange amphibious bipedal creatures have been made over the years, especially here in the United States.
Right, and that's one thing you will find out as you start looking into modern sightings of these things. Most times, you can backtrack and find, historical references, old sightings, that are maybe to the 1800s, and then back to Native American legends. As far as you can look, you'll see these either coincidental or, kind of spooky that they were seeing this stuff in the same area. So in the case of the Bishopville lizard man, I did, look into the back history around there and found that there were Native American legends about a race of men who they described in sort of reptilian terms. They said they had these rigid tails, and they existed off by eating fish, and they came from the sea, and these people disappeared after the fish ran out. So while the descriptions here don't really match the modern description of the lizard man, it is, really weird that you could find Native American history about a reptilian type humanoid in this very area where in 1988 people started reporting the lizard man. And, note that the witnesses who reported seeing the lizard man would have had no earthly idea that there was any sort of old Native American tales that would be similar. So it is, a very cool connection, and one thing that brings substance to the case,
I'm going to ask you when we get to our next segment whether, in looking over possible candidates for further investigation, you found cases that just didn't pass muster. It was just people telling tall tales around the campfire, as some people complain about a guest we had on a few weeks ago was doing. But we'll get into that and more. We're going to look at the lizard man and other strange creatures. Our guest is Lyle Blackburn. We got more to come. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
The nation's largest independently owned and operated talk radio network, the Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
We live in a complicated society. Stressful issues are always popping up. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone? Have you ever been overcharged for a repair? Have you ever signed a contract or a document? Worried about identity theft? How many times have you been in those unique situations where you just wanted to call an attorney to find out if you're right or wrong, or what your legal rights are? But every time you think about calling an attorney, what do you think about first? That's right. Who do you call, and how much will it cost? Our friends at Legal Shield have found a solution. With a nationwide network of 6,900 attorneys who average over 19 years of experience, Legal Shield's law firms take over 40,000 calls per week helping their members. For less than $20 per month, you can have access to Legal Shield on everything from the trivial to the traumatic. Let Legal Shield stand up for your rights at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com. Or call 855-340-SAVE, 855-340-7283.
Now you can get the same survival food U.S. Special Forces use on their toughest field missions. High protein, high energy, freeze-dried foods known as long-range patrol rations or LRPs. Soldiers love LRP rations. They're lightweight and easy to carry. Easy to prepare by just adding water. Easy to enjoy because they taste great. Civilians love LRPs as a solution for emergency preparedness and recreational activities with limited storage space, such as hiking, climbing, sailing, or RV travel. Veteran-owned Freeze Dry Guy is your exclusive source for this 2013 U.S. military overrun. Long on nutrition, these delicious entrees have a long shelf life, lasting decades. But this rare opportunity, this limited supply, will not last long. You have to act now. Call 866-404-3663, 866-404-FOOD, or log on now to freezedryguy.com, freezedryguy.com.
It's that time of year again, and you know what that means. Cold and flu season. But don't worry, herbalhealer.com has you and your loved ones covered with our safe and natural products. Cold and flu fighters like beta-glucans, olive leaf antiviral capsules, grapefruit seed extract, HHA 4-herb capsules, elderberry power, and respirate. And don't forget about oregacillin for the lungs, normally $34.95, on sale now for only $25. Vitamin D3 120-count soft gels, only $9. Whole body and homeopathic detoxes for the lungs, kidneys, liver, lymph, and brain, normally $26.95, now just $20. Herbalhealer.com also offers correspondence courses to teach you how to handle your health naturally. And as always, new customers get a free 128-page catalog with your order. Visit herbalhealer.com and click the Winter Specials button to save on our natural cold and flu fighting products. Herbalhealer.com, healing the world with nature, one person at a time, since 1988.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
Chris has his inner lizard taking control of his being right now. Gene and Chris talking to Lyle Blackburn. Lyle, in choosing cases to do on-site investigation, and when you do on-site investigation, folks, he's traveling to that place. He's got to stay at the local motels or find somebody to put him up or something. The key here is it involves a lot of time and expense. It's not a casual thing. So in looking for places that interested you, Lyle, did you find any that just didn't pass muster at all?
Yeah, I mean, there are some that, you know, as you look a little bit further into them, there's some dubious aspects to it, things that don't add up, or witnesses whose stories, you know, seem a little bit far-fetched. And certainly by going to an area and trying to speak to people more in person rather than, you know, getting a summary from Wikipedia or something, you can kind of sort out what seems real and genuine from something that's been, you know, passed down, rewritten, and summarized, you know, 20 times on the internet, you know, so far from the source. So, yeah, certainly, you know, in two aspects. One, I have interviewed witnesses in some cases that, you know, I just didn't feel like their story stood up. So I just didn't include those as examples of credible reports. You know, on top of that, you start expanding out, and like in the case of the lizard man, we're going to look at, you know, other reptilian reports from around the U.S. Well, when you start looking into sort of reptilian/amphibious, you really start getting on the fringes of cryptozoology and, you know, into paranormal or whatever. I found that, you know, some of those cases were just very dubious. There's one called the Loveland frog, which comes up a lot when you talk about sort of lizard men or amphibious creatures. And, you know, I looked into that, and, you know, I just sort of tell the story, but I, you know, make no bones about it, you know, even in the book, and say, I don't know, you know, it's, few things don't add up. I just call it how it is, you know. So some cases are going to have better support and credible evidence, and then some of them just have very little to go on. So you just kind of have to make a judgment. Like I said, in my books, I just tell the story. It's a great story no matter what it is, because these are mysterious things, and I just try to sort out the truth, offer it up, and let myself and the readers decide from there.
Well, let's go in and talk about Bishopville and this incredible outbreak of reports that happened in the early summer of 1988. I think the first report of, correct me if I'm wrong, is a family reporting that their Ford LTD had been mauled at night, and they couldn't figure out what had tore up the fender and other things. And then a few days later was the next month was a very bizarre report that was filed by a guy named Chris, what was it, Davis, I think, right, who reported seeing this creature. Why don't we start with those early events, and then we'll kind of continue on and show some of the other eyewitness cases that occurred during this very interesting flap that occurred in, I think, Lee County, correct me if I'm wrong, South Carolina?
Right. Yeah, it was interesting how the whole thing got started. It was in the July of 1988, and the sheriff's office down there, the Lee County sheriff, got a call from those folks who said, we woke up this morning, our Ford LTD has been eaten up. It looks like an animal attacked it. And so sheriff said, okay, he sends a couple of deputies down there to check it out. Well, they look at it, and sure enough, it really does look like an animal has done something to the car. Pieces are ripped off, but there's sort of some footprints, there's some hair, really strange. So they call back down there to the sheriff, Liston Truesdale, and said, hey, sheriff, this is weird. We don't know what to make of it. You might better come check this out. So he goes down there, starts looking into it. And in the process of that, some of the locals started gathering around. The police are there. So, people are gathering. And some of them came up and said, well, this might be the result of a creature that people have been seeing around here we call the lizard man. And so the sheriff is like, the what? The lizard man? And, he's listening. He's just trying to make sense of this. They say, yeah, several people lately have seen a tall, maybe 7 foot tall creature. It's either brownish or greenish in color. And, it seems to be lurking in this area, an area which is called Skateboard Swamp. And the car, which had been damaged, was right on the outskirts of the Skateboard Swamp. So the police weren't sure what to make of this, but either way, they had a damaged car and, some tall, crazy stories. So they said, well, look, you tell anybody who has seen this creature to come see us. And so this actually got in the newspaper, and that's what brought in Christopher Davis. A few days later, Christopher Davis's father brought him down to the police station and said, my son may have something to add to this whole lizard man. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, he was attacked by a creature kind of fitting this description. And so, that's when the whole witness thing came forward. And his sighting, just to briefly sum it up, was very sensational. He said he had a flat tire in the middle of the night out by Skateboard Swamp on his way home from work. As he was getting ready to leave, he sees some kind of humanoid figure coming at him through the fennel grass. As it gets closer, he could tell that it probably not a man. He didn't know what it was. He jumps in his car, tries to speed away. This thing tries to get in. It jumps on the ar, tries to attack him. And so while it sounds crazy, Sheriff Truesdale did believe this kid was telling the truth. He wasn't sure what exactly had attacked him, but he felt that something had happened to this kid. And so that's where it all started. That got in the newspaper, and everybody just kind of went lizard man crazy there in that summer.
Very briefly here, has anyone been seriously harmed by one of these creatures or killed by one of them?
No, I mean, there's no proof of that. And Christopher Davis, by all accounts, seemingly came the closest to being injured. But, a lot of the other witnesses just got brief glimpses running across the road. They saw it at the edge of the woods, things like that. It never attacked anybody else. But as far as, Christopher Davis, that surely is the hinge point sighting. And it did appear to be aggressive towards him.
That these sightings seem to be clustered around the Skateboard Swamp and the particular road, Browntown Road, that crosses the swamp, and then this particular bridge seems to be kind of the epicenter where a lot of these witness reports seem to be generated from. What do you think about that? Is that an indication that this particular creature was inhabiting that area And if so, for how long? I mean, what was the duration of the sighting events?
As I mentioned, the police had kind of put out this APB on people who had seen it to come forward. And after Christopher Davis had come forward, his had been within the couple of weeks. Some other guys had come forward that had sightings dating back a couple of years. So, people in the area had been seeing something strange lurking down there for, some time before it ever, became public knowledge, which is typical in these cases. I find that, you have a lot of people that's going to see something. Well, what are they going to do? They're not going to run to the police or the newspaper. It takes an event sort of like the police getting involved and Christopher Davis coming forward that some other people will end up coming forward and saying, hey, I saw this thing. I just didn't tell anybody. So, it was mostly in that Skateboard Swamp area near Bishopville, and it's a place where you sort of where civilization sort of meets that swampy bottomland, a lot of undeveloped area. And of course, by me going there, I can really determine, is this a place where a large animal could even roam? But it is true that Skateboard Swamp is fairly remote, rugged. I interviewed Sheriff Truesdale, and he told me about, a lot of the history and how, moonshiners used to hide in there and things like that.
We have Lyle Blackburn. We're talking about the Lizard Man and other stuff, frightening stuff with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast. We are the premier independent talk radio network, the Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Fortean phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free, sent right to your mailbox. Plus, a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
Hey everyone, have you heard about the No hair removal device that's sweeping the globe? If you want to go weeks without shaving and get smooth, professional quality results, here's our favorite host, Cheryl, for No hair removal.
Thanks. Hey gals, I love talking about my No. It's this cute little hair removal system that you can take with you and use almost anywhere at home or on the road. No more expensive in-office treatments, painful waxing, and no more wasting your valuable time. Got unwanted facial hair? No has patented thermocon technology that works on all hair and skin colors, so it's perfect for using on all body parts. And now you can take advantage of this incredible risk-free trial. Get the No, the facial kit, a travel case, and a $100 discount shopping card, and you don't risk a penny to try it. Try the incredible No hair completely risk-free. Call 1-800-953-6062. That's 800-953-6062. 800-953-6062.
Curious about what comes next? Next is the feeling of vulnerability you get after you arrive home to discover your house has been ransacked by burglars. Fool the bad guys with a new improved fake TV. You asked for it, we listened, and we made our new fake TV 3 times brighter than our previous model. The brightness of our new fake TV is equivalent to a 40-inch TV. It simulates the color and motion of a real TV while you're away from home. And when burglars think someone is home watching television, they're likely to pass your house and move on to an easier target. The new, brighter fake TV is only $39.95 and includes free shipping. Go to faketv.com or call 1-877-5-FAKE-TV. That's 877-532-5388. Or go to faketv.com. Fake TV, the burglar deterrent.
Hi, my name is DeRay, suffering from migraines, having Botox injections in my head and neck to alleviate pain, costing $1,500 out of my pocket. I discovered Dr. Ortman and Gentle Touch chiropractic adjustment called Nuka. I'm migraine-free since my first adjustment. Thanks for giving me my life back, Dr. Ortman. I wish they prescribed you instead of Botox.
Thanks, DeRay. Putting the bones back in place is only half of the solution. We design a nutritional supplement program the body can handle, actually absorb, providing nutrients, targeting the problem area. Between Nuka and nutrition, we will have you on the road to a faster and more permanent recovery. Look us up on the web at drortman.com or call 952-303-9124. Let us help you feel better faster. Wellspring Spinal Care at 952-303-9124. Again, that's 952-303-9124. Or on the web at drortman.com.
This is Kurt Sotheby, author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
So Chris gave up the lizard voice, okay, for this segment, but he'll come back with it. Lyle Blackburn is joining us. His books, The Beast of Boggy Creek and Lizard Man. Tell us more, Lyle.
So, by going to this area and seeing Escape War Swamp myself, I could determine that, it conceivably is an area where a large creature could remain undetected for some time. It's hard to say, if the alleged lizard man had been in the area for a long time. I mean, there just wasn't many sightings or none that we could trace back that went much further back than the mid-'80s. So, hard to say, or, was a creature passing through there, which is certainly possible because it is a waterway, and waterways seem to be a place that these creatures are seen frequently, from Bigfoot to other strange creatures. They travel the waterways. I mean, this is like a highway to them in a way to remain concealed and to stay near a source of water, which is, something they definitely need. So it's not surprising that you could have a creature seen in one area for a short period of time and then maybe move on. So, if you widen the scope, you can see that along the Ohio River Valley and other nearby waterways that would eventually feed into South Carolina, that there are a history of, strange sightings there as well.
Well, I noticed here that the national media really jumped all over these initial reports, and that People magazine came down to Bishopville, and Dan Rather from CBS News. Now, this is all within a month of the Chris Davis claim. Now, do you have a sense that possibly this national exposure may have led to some people claiming that they saw this thing just to get attention? Or how do we factor out media coverage and people wanting to get their names mentioned or their faces on the local TV show or even a national TV show? How do we separate the wheat from the chaff when it comes to that?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting aspect of the story, just how much media was going on. I mean, it's just mind-blowing because the case was generating, media on a national level and even international. I think that if it was a case of a lot of people trying to get their name in the media and so forth, there would have been a lot more sighting reports. And being that the sheriff's office was looking into it and monitoring it very closely, I'm quite confident that most of the sightings, had come to light at the time. And I don't, and I've looked at each one and in some cases talked to some of those witnesses, and I don't feel like any of them were making anything up, especially to get in the media. And most of them, aside from Christopher Davis, who just sort of reported what he saw before there was a big media rush, most of those people, they didn't do a lot of interviews. They were barely mentioned in the paper, so they didn't seem to be all about trying to, make something of it. So I didn't find that they were, trying to get media coverage. I mean, there was one guy who actually perpetrated a hoax, which, he was busted and, it's an interesting part of the story, but that's the only guy that pulled any shenanigans. And sure enough, the sheriff's office wasn't fooled by any of that. And, it came to light that he never saw the lizard man. So I think the wheat from the chaff has been fairly sorted, and I'm fairly confident that those witnesses saw what they saw.
Well, it's interesting. I must compliment you, Lyle, on your timeline that you provide at the end of the book, which goes down date by date, all the developments in this particular flap of events. And one thing that really comes through impressively is you mentioned on August 26, 1988, a little over a month after Christopher Davis made his sighting, and also Davis was given a polygraph test, which he passed, as you noted in your book. But I see that a Colonel Mason Phillips of the Army Corps of Engineers had a sighting in Lee County. And there were other, pillars of the community. There was a rumored sighting by a bank president. There were others, too, that are the kinds of people in the kinds of positions that you don't normally associate reporting or telling stories that they'd seen a creature of this sort. Generally, most people, the skeptics out there, think that it's only people that are, smoking crack in their trailer at the trailer park that see UFOs or strange creatures. You mentioned some pretty reputable folks in your book, and why don't we go in and talk about some of the other sightings that happened there, the middle part and towards the end of the summer of 1988?
Yeah, certainly, and that the colonel reporting that sighting is another one that you can definitely say he wasn't looking for media attention. In fact, he did not want his name used in the paper, but he felt it to be his duty to inform Sheriff Truesdale about what he saw. So, in fact, he was risking his job really to go reporting something like that. I saw a lizard man. That's not great on the colonel's resume. So. And in fact, he did not want his name used. I know his real name, and I honored that original request that it not be used in the paper. So I had to do a little switching on his name there to keep it anonymous. So he is still, he's actually passed on, but his wife is still alive. But that was an interesting sighting. It was, rather brief. He saw it run across the road. It was interesting, though, that he said he thought it had a tail, whereas most people did not describe the creature as having a tail. Now, the media always kind of drew it as some kind of a silly dinosaur-looking alligator man, but that's not really what people described. They described more of a just humanoid creature without a tail. But he did describe a tail, and, it was a very brief sighting. Later, some other guys came forward, one of those being Frank Mitchell. He had a sighting actually from his airplane. He was a crop duster, and during that summer, actually prior to Chris Davis's sighting, he was taken off from his runway, and as he looked down, he saw some sort of strange creature running out in the open just between two sets of woods. Of course, he's in the plane. He's trying to look down and look back, and it, got out of sight. So he didn't have a very long look at it, but he was quite certain it wasn't a person running across there. That it could have possibly been what people were dubbing the lizard man. So, and I spent some time with Frank at his house and discussed it with him. And I just don't feel like he's making this up. He didn't receive great media coverage or riches or fame from it. He just saying, here's what I saw,
Another interesting event that you mentioned is an airman from Shaw Air Force Base, Kenneth Orr, who claims he actually took a shot at the lizard man. Why don't you describe that particular encounter?
And bear in mind, too, we have 2 minutes till we do the break. So if we have to split up the comment, Lyle, we'll do it. Go ahead.
Okay. That Kenneth Orr was the one I mentioned that ended up being a hoax. He said he encountered the lizard man while driving in his car. He got out, he shot it. And what he did was bring some fish scales down to the sheriff's office as evidence of this having occurred. Well, it didn't take long for them to sort out the truth and They knew fish scales. I mean, Sheriff Truesdale's fished plenty of times. He wasn't fooled by any of this. So there was a case where, there was somebody trying to perpetrate a hoax, and he said he did it to keep the legend alive. I guess he felt it was his duty. I mean, I don't know, but like
right, and he got busted for having an unregistered gun, as you note in your timeline here.
Right. Yeah. So he ended up, getting in worse trouble. So, there's a case, and it's an interesting part of the story, but certainly one that, has played out and does not support, the sightings. It's interesting. Another interesting aspect of that. Recently, I saw a comment on the internet where that dude's brother said that he was responsible for all the lizard man sightings. He was the one who frightened Christopher Davis. He was wearing some kind of a mask because he passed by there at night on his way home from work at Shaw Air Force Base. So all of it's nonsense because I know where the guy lived at the time. I know where Shaw Air Force Base is. He did not have to pass anywhere near Skateboard Swamp. There's a lot of things that didn't add up. So you have a lot of people later on trying to claim that I was the lizard man. But it's almost like confessing to a crime that you don't have, backup for.
Lyle Blackburn joins Gene and Chris exploring monsters. You're in the Paracast.
We are America's largest independently owned communications network, GCN.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit and carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
There are many things the human body can do very well, but maintaining the proper pH level isn't always one of them. That's where AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops can make a world of difference. AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops helps your body do what's natural. Just a few drops a day helps rid your body of harmful waste and acid while promoting health and restoring vibrance and energy. Alkalizing boosts your immune system and can help fight headaches, irritability, cramping, and insomnia. Alkalizing also helps the body fight depression and even bone loss. To learn more about the importance of alkalizing and how you can find life-changing and vital balance, please visit AlkaVision's brand new website at alkavision.com. Same great products, but now easier to use and more informative than ever before. To get your very own Plasma pH Drops for just $29.95, call 800-518-7615 or visit alkavision.com. That's ALKA vision.com. Alkalize your body and supercharge your health at the new alkavision.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
On the Paracast, we're talking about the various creatures and sightings that Lyle Blackburn's reported. One thing that bothers me when I read about these stories, not that there is not a possibility they're true, they certainly sound mysterious, but it's generally one creature. We have a lizard man. Where's the lizard woman? Where's the lizard kids? Why is it generally just one? Most of the time, it's a singular creature.
Yeah, that's true, and that's certainly something that doesn't bode well for the credibility of these creatures. In a case like the lizard man, there aren't just a heck of a lot of sightings. So it's possible that, what people saw just was an adult male, if it's a real creature. You start widening, the investigations. If you're looking at Bigfoot, I do get a lot of reports where people have seen multiple creatures or a baby one or this and that. So I'm not sure in the case of the lizard man, if there was a family or why it was just one creature. But that's always the case where it's this solitary, strange entity and people see it and it's gone. It's hard to know why that is,
Well, you think if they're real, this is the hunter. The man, the male of the species, is the hunter-gatherer, and maybe somewhere in the forest, somewhere near the lake or whatever it is, you have the female and the kids being shielded from outsiders. Just wondering, just trying to answer this.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, a lot of times you'll see a solitary bear or a solitary cougar, the male hunting and things. And whereas the mother and babies are definitely going to stay, more concealed, and away from highways and roads and people and things. So, there's ways you can look at it to sort of support it either way.
Now, in your book, you mentioned that some of these sightings feature descriptions of what I guess would sound more like a skunk ape, that there seems to be some kind of crossover between a reptilian type form versus something that's more of a hominid or like a skunk ape type form. Why don't you go in and sort of address that particular issue, which you do in your book?
Right. Yeah, that was one thing that I learned as I really started looking into the case. I mean, most of the time, if you read about this in a cryptozoology book or on the internet, primarily they talk about the Christopher Davis sighting. They talk about, as in terms of reptilian aspects and traits. It is called the lizard man. So that leads your mind to a certain general image you have when you hear that name. But as I looked into this, I found that the media had portrayed it as sort of this, more outlandish creature from the Black Lagoon meets alligator man type thing. The witnesses described something more shadowy. It was humanoid. They weren't sure. Sometimes it was green or brown. And then some of the witnesses who got presumably a closer look, usually in the headlight, said they thought it had hair and it looked like a Bigfoot. So that, that leads to possibilities and theories that perhaps, this wasn't maybe a reptilian, or perhaps people saw two different creatures. Perhaps Christopher Davis saw a Bigfoot who had come up out of Skateboard Swamp and it was wet, or it had a hair condition, or it was mangy, or, any number of things. The pilot, Frank Mitchell, the crop duster, said he thought it walked very monkey-like. Its arms were long. He said it was kind of loping over. He said, in his opinion, it looked somewhat primate. And he saw it in daylight, although he was, taking off in the plane. I started to think, well, maybe reptilian humanoid isn't the only possibility, and I laid out the sightings that would support that. And of course, in my book, I just try to bring it all forward and let's take a look at it, not to say that it wasn't two different creatures, one of them reptilian, one of them, being a skunk ape or what have you, but certainly opens the possibilities and, adds more pieces to the puzzle.
Well, for people who aren't as well versed in this particular subject matter and who have maybe a peripheral interest, South Carolina doesn't come up on the radar as a place where you normally equate Bigfoot sightings or these strange kind of cryptoid creatures. In researching the state, especially around this particular area, is there some sort of history of Bigfoot type sightings, other creature sightings? Can you give us a sense of the kind of local folklore, urban legends that may come into play here a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. And that was one of the things as I, begin to look at the witness descriptions that described it in terms of a hairy hominid or humanoid or whatever. And let me note that these witness statements were very precise because in this case, there was actual police documentation. People had reported seeing something and the sheriff had the wherewithal to make them come in, he separated people and had them write down what they saw. So I have that written documentation, which was made days after their sighting. So I'm quite sure they didn't change their story over the years or anything like that. They did describe something they thought had hair. So as I looked into the possibility of, are there Bigfoots living in the area that could have been confused as a lizard man, I did find that there are Bigfoot sightings in South Carolina. It's not one of the most prominent states where you have things like that, but I talked to one of my colleagues out there, Mike Richburg, who had, done more research into that, and he had quite a few sightings that he had investigated of Bigfoot-like creatures. There's also some other more legend-type creatures. There's one called the Hide Behind, which is sort of a primate-like creature that often seen hiding behind trees. Sometimes it's said to be more monkey-like or even have 3 toes. So, that's an interesting thing, and certainly a creature that, is by all, accounts more primate, but still maybe not a Bigfoot. So, there's definitely Bigfoot sightings out there. And if it's one of those things where you start digging into it, you go to the area, you start talking to colleagues that have lived there all their lives, sure enough, you start turning up a whole bunch of supporting backlog of creature sightings that you can bring forth when you're investigating the case.
Well, you mentioned an interesting kind of detail, which I find intriguing, and that is 3 toes. Now, in the book, you show a photograph of what is alleged to be a track, which is very obvious to have 3 toes, and also a photograph of a cast that was taken of tracks. Why don't you address, before we go to break, physical evidence and the analysis of some of this trackway evidence?
Well, it's interesting that a lot of these swamp creatures in cryptozoology are said to have 3 toes. And when footprints are found, in these areas, even the creature, the Honey Island swamp monster, it has 3 toes. And the lizard man follows suit with that. At the time, during 1988, the police actually came across a set of tracks that had been left in a dirt road near Browntown Road. And they were curious 3-toed tracks. And, these are alleged to be the tracks of the lizard man. And this is, some solid evidence. However, when I looked at those tracks, they just don't add up. And these have been featured on a few different television shows. Josh Gates investigated this thing on Destination Truth. And, I mean, we have all basically come to the conclusion that these tracks are dubious at best. However, that being said, my colleague Mike Richburg said he actually has found some tracks around that time period that he believed were 3 toes. So while the most famous lizard man tracks have a dubious origin, there were some other reports that kind of support this 3-toed thing. And so, short of having a body of one of these things to actually verify the number of toes, you just sort of have to start making guesses. Is this a natural form that they take? Is this due to inbreeding? Is it a deformity? Just why would they have 3 toes? Because most upright, all upright animals would have, 5, primate, so forth.
We got more coming with Lyle Blackburn with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
Quantitative easing, unemployment at depression levels, Europe financial system falling apart, China getting out of U.S. treasuries. At the end of 2008, the time of TARP, the national debt was at $11 trillion, gold trading around $850 per ounce. Close to 2012, the national debt exceeded $16.4 trillion, gold doubled to $1,600 per ounce. The $20 trillion threshold for the national debt is inevitable. Politicians in Washington have a ferocious appetite for spending and stimulus. What's worse, a printing press to finance. 100 years ago, we had a gold standard to limit this madness, but now you have to adopt your own gold standard. Don't be fooled with paper promises. Get Midas Resources 10 Reasons to Buy Gold free by calling 800-686-2237. Understanding the gold and silver market may be the only insurance you could have to avoiding the next economic crisis. Call 1-800-686-2237 and order your free copy. Again, that's 800-686-2237.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, listen carefully. Sweeping changes to IRS policies will help more people than ever eliminate their tax debts once and for all. And now, I can help you reduce or eliminate your tax debts and end your tax nightmare. Hi, I'm Dan Pilla. I've helped thousands of people reduce and eliminate tax debts they couldn't pay. And after more than 30 years of experience dealing with the IRS, I can tell you there's no such thing as a hopeless tax case. And with the IRS's new policies, it's easier than ever to put your tax debt behind you once and for all. Call now at 800-346-6829 to learn how I can help you. You know your IRS debt will not go away by itself, but you don't have to live in fear anymore. Call 800-346-6829. Learn how I can help you eliminate wage and bank levies, release tax liens, and negotiate a settlement with the IRS that will put your tax nightmare behind you forever. Call 800-34-NO-TAX or go to taxhelponline.com. That's taxhelponline.com.
Normal blood pressure, naturally. How would that make you feel?
I'm Don from New Mexico. January of 2000, I had a heart attack. Then my real health began going downhill, and I had high blood pressure, high blood sugar, poor vision, and I really wasn't sleeping well. I was a mess, pretty much.
Don reports dramatic improvements with Heart and Body Extract.
I started taking Heart and Body Extract, and from within a few days, I started sleeping a lot better. My blood pressure normalized, my blood sugar normalized, and my sleep really did improve.
Experience these benefits and more when your body gets what it needs with the assistance of Heart and Body Extract. Order at hbextract.com or call 866-295-5305. That's hbextract.com or call 866-295-5305.
And folks, I did not expect this at all. By the 7th, 8th, and 9th day, I saw dramatic improvements from taking Heart and Body Extract.
Details at hbextract.com or call 866-295-5305 for Heart and Body Extract.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Creature sightings. I don't know that I'd ever want to be around one of those places. I know Chris gets into those parts too. Lyle Blackburn, have you personally seen anything weird?
No, unfortunately, I've never had a visual sighting that I could definitively say is a unknown creature. So, I'm still like many people, just looking for that lucky chance or what have you. So, so far, I haven't.
What kind of equipment do you bring with you when you do these explorations? Are you prepared in case you do see something?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big gearhead, but I do carry a good quality camera, usually an audio recording device. The more money you have, the more of this fancy equipment has become available. Thermal imaging, I think, is a great thing. I used to own a night vision binoculars, but those are, fairly limited to, a shorter distance and, hard to see. If you're traipsing through a swamp, hard to be looking through that. So, while technology gives us some advantages, it still is a limit, because you've got to actually see the creature and see it within a fairly short distance, even to see it through night vision and things like that, whereas thermal imaging would give you a longer range of view. So I carry just a minimal amount of equipment, I guess, I would say.
Well, the tape recorder is real important. Obviously, a lot of this information, the vast majority of it, is going to be anecdotal in nature, interviewing witnesses. One of the things that strikes me about this particular outbreak in South Carolina is that the quality of witnesses is fairly high. And we also have 2 cases that feature physical evidence of damage to vehicles. Now, we talked about the Y family. Let's talk about the other case that featured, some pretty significant damage to a car.
Yeah, that's another interesting aspect to the case. There were 2 other incidents, one in 2008 and one in 2011, I believe, in which people in the vicinity of Scape Swamp reported this same type of vehicular vandalism that appeared to have been perpetrated by an animal. And so when it happened in 2008, sort of since 1988, that was like the 20th year anniversary, of the lizard man sighting. So that was interesting. And the police did investigate that and felt that the people, had a legitimate claim. They weren't trying to seek publicity or anything else. It's just something happened to their car. Now, of course, fast forward to 2008, we have a lot more technology on our side. They were able to run some DNA on that and determine that it was canine. And so while the police actually weren't even sold on that result, perhaps, dogs did it.
That's got to be an angry pack of dogs, boy, to do that kind of damage.
Yeah, I mean, it is just crazy just to think that, that would be a dog. But with these car cases, they were all so circumstantial. I mean, nobody ever saw the lizard man and then saw it damage a car. So it was just a thin connection between the two, but definitely something weird that plays into the whole case, that this keeps happening down there in the same area, no matter who's doing it, whether it's a dog or a lizard man. It just adds up to be a lot of weird stuff going on in this area.
Well, speaking of that, we have a number of questions from listeners who are able to post questions for our guests at forum.theparacast.com, and a new member who signed up on Monday with the hashtag Team Sheep Squatch gnome, shall we say, has a couple of questions. And the first one is, in the case of the lizard man, how many credible witnesses did you speak with? And from what he understands, these sightings occur all over Lee County. And he says, I have read probably 25 reports from people that definitely had some kind of experience. How widespread is this? And is it just exclusively focused on the swamp area there, or are there cases outside of that area?
Well, I'm not sure where he's getting these. I mean, I've spent a considerable amount of time tracing down different witnesses, and there were some reports, in the greater area of Lee County that occurred much later, and a lot of these were found by the police to be very sketchy. I mean, one lady was very well known to be kind of crazy, and these were connected to UFO reports and other things like that. So in my case, I focused in on the history of the Bishopville lizard man and what seemed to be that creature. Now, a lot of the witnesses have passed away. I spoke to Frank Mitchell. I spoke to one other that didn't want to be included in the book, but just verified what had been written in his original witness report, which I had on file with the police. And in another case, like I said, again, I had these written witness reports that had been done within days of seeing the creature that I could refer to, which was great. Because, again, I'm not interviewing somebody 40 years later. I'm looking at what they had seen and their reactions at that very time when it was fresh on their mind. So that was a benefit. So unfortunately, with so many of them having passed on, I could refer to the Sheriff Liston Truesdale, who was the one who actually interviewed these people when it happened. And of course, having him consulting with me as I investigated was a great benefit, and he could help me sort out, just what was true and about the case, and fill in the gaps where a lot of the witnesses had passed on.
Yeah, I find that local law enforcement, if they're willing to even get involved publicly, if they're intrigued enough, they tend to be really good sources of information, and I think very credible, because obviously they have an elected position that makes them cautious and conservative in one sense. But if they feel that there's something to an outbreak of events and they're willing to work with investigators, I find that very, very advantageous. Now, Team Sheep Squatch, interesting name, has a second question. We don't have much time before the break, but let me pose it. Christopher Davis supposedly found a shed, and he says similar to snakeskin. I'm not sure about that. But evidently, Davis found this several years after his initial sighting. Do you have any info on this? And do you believe that this shed even exists?
Yeah, that's just not true at all. I don't know. I'm not sure where he got that particular information, but he's partially confusing the story, which involves this building called the Butterbean Shed, in which was nearby to where his incident occurred. And there's a long story about this whole Davis incident, and the fact that a local farmer at first said he was the one, and he was trying to scare off kids away from his shed, and then he said he didn't.
Let's pause here and continue that answer, explaining what this local farmer did. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast. A little right, a little left, but always independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
Now you can get the same survival food U.S. Special Forces use on their toughest field missions. High-protein, high-energy, freeze-dried foods known as long-range patrol rations, or LRPs. Soldiers love LRP rations. They're lightweight and easy to carry. Easy to prepare by just adding water. Easy to enjoy because they taste great. Civilians love LRPs as a solution for emergency preparedness and recreational activities with limited storage space, such as hiking, climbing, sailing, or RV travel. Veteran-owned Freeze Dry Guy is your exclusive source for this 2013 U.S. military overrun. Long on nutrition, these delicious entrees have a long shelf life, lasting decades. But this rare opportunity, this limited supply, will not last long. You have to act now. Call 866-404-3663, 866-404-FOOD, or log on now to freezedryguy.com, freezedryguy.com.
We all know that Berkey Water Purification Systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey water filtration systems. The Berkey Light systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light system today, complete with 2 Black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at goberkey.com. That's goberkey.com today.
It's no secret that silver is one of the oldest known natural antibiotics, but the mainstream media will never tell we the people this information. Why? Many drug companies and politicians have dangerous alliances that manipulate the way we live by prescribing drugs that only manage disease, keeping us dependent on big pharma. And with Obamacare at our doorstep, we are now forced into a system that many of us do not want any part of. And no man or government has the right to dictate how we as free people choose to take care of our health. The patriots at utopiasilver.com hold this truth dear. Colloidal and ionic silver supplements from utopiasilver.com open the door to a whole new world of natural healing for the body and the mind. Visit utopiasilver.com and discover the safe and effective health benefits of colloidal and ionic silver. Call 888-213-4338, 888-213-4338, and talk to the patriots at utopiasilver.com, a leading source of natural healing using colloidal silver, colloidal gold, minerals, vitamins, and herbs. utopiasilver.com.
Hi, my name is Richard Dolan. You're listening to the Paracast.
We have Gene and Chris the Lizard Person talking to Lyle Blackburn, and you were just defining an answer to one of Chris's questions. Lyle, go ahead, please.
So, yes, there was a butterbean shed, and this involved a farmer which lived nearby where Christopher Davis said the incident occurred. And I find this a lot of times, that you see a lot of stuff on the internet and things that have just sort of twisted and turned, and the story becomes completely incorrect. You know, such as Christopher Davis finding lizard skins and things that just never happened. But again, they do sort of, I can see where they've rooted in something that was real, such as the butterbean shed, and then just sort of morphed into something else. So the short answer is that never happened. Christopher Davis never had any other experience with the lizard man. In fact, he tried to distance himself as much as he could because it kind of messed up the kid's life. I mean, he didn't, from then on out, he's known as, the kid who saw the lizard man, and it kind of haunted him. A lot of people just never believed him, and people wanted to keep asking questions. So he ended up having to move away and didn't want anything to do with it. It kind of affected the rest of his life. So he wasn't out there looking in sheds or looking for evidence of the lizard man or anything like that. Just never happened.
You mentioned the rest of his life. Christopher Davis met a violent end, and other people associated with the case died in kind of interesting to note ways. Why don't you describe some of those?
Yeah, that was something I discovered as I was doing the research, that, there was something that, could be a curse of the lizard man, so to speak. Christopher Davis, namely, who was actually murdered in his house years later. Unfortunately, he had started out as a very good young man and interested in sports and excelled in high school and just an average kid. But later on, he got involved in drugs and things like that, which ended up getting him killed, literally right in front of his family, which was just nuts. And I talked to Sheriff Truesdale about that, and he definitely thought that, the result of him seeing the lizard man, the result of all the media press that had gone on about it and having to deal with that the rest of his life, could be a factor as to why he sort of got off the path. Now, some of the other witnesses, this young man who had seen it with his family, the Blyther's family, in 1990, he was killed in a car accident later. The original witness, George Plyler, he died, but not really of of strange circumstances or anything. The colonel is dead, and there was actually more stuff to his story which I was not allowed to print in the book. I really wish I could, because there was some really, really weird stuff that went on there, and the family did not want that printed. So I could not totally expound on his incident, but I suffice to say that at least half of the witnesses that had reported seeing the lizard man met with an untimely end and or some bizarre circumstances that followed them after death.
All right, let's clarify here. This is something that happens after they met up with the creature, but not something the creature might have done directly.
Correct.
Oh, well, I don't want to meet one of those.
I mean, Christopher Davis being, shot.
We hardly think a creature did that.
Right. One of the young Blyther boy was killed in a car accident. George Plyler, conceivably died of natural circumstances. The colonel, there was some, I wouldn't say foul play, but some shenanigans that went on there that, but I don't think were a result of the lizard man directly in any way. It's not like they touched the lizard man and got a disease or it put a spell on him. It was just, I think it's just simply coincidental. I mean, look at the more famous case of the curse of King Tut. There's no direct link that, these people died as a result of entering, the Pharaoh's tomb. But there's a lot of weird stuff that you can start connecting if you want to connect the dots.
Now, when it comes to UFO sightings, we have in the past mentioned possible premature deaths of some people involved in the field, but we don't want to stretch that too far.
I met a woman in college that, looking back at it, I swear she was a lizard girl, and I touched her, and thank goodness I didn't catch anything.
Well, there you go. I mean, lizard people, we don't know enough about them, apparently, so it's best be wise to keep a distance.
Right. Careful what you wish for. Well, where do you come down here now? You spent a considerable amount of time researching this, interviewing witnesses, the sheriff. What do you think we're dealing with here, Lyle? Is this just a figment of people's imagination that is able to scratch up and tear up cars? Is it something that's manifest at all times in our reality? Is it something possibly dimensional? What do you think? Are we dealing with a cryptoid humanoid creature that's lurking about swamps like Gollum, searching for garbage and fish and whatever it is that it needs to survive? What do you think?
Well, it's hard to pick just one because there is just so little information, and a lot of it's anecdotal, as you say. My first and foremost objective in these cases is really just to tell the whole story. First, I think they're interesting. They're mysterious, they're creepy, and whether we can solve them or not is not necessarily the point, because I think, obviously we're not going to be able to solve something like this unless we had a body or a much better, clear video or something like that. So, it's something that you just have to make some guesses at, and some of those have to do with, what we have here, short of, solid scientific evidence is, just theories and conjecture. And so for me, I'm not one to latch on to a lot of, paranormal or supernatural type things. But, certainly when you start dealing with lizard man, it's hard to say. But, I think in the case of these witnesses, you can't say that they were hallucinating or anything like that. I think they legitimately saw something happened to them. Now, whether it was a, lizard man, it's hard to say, but definitely, and I think Sheriff Truesdale agrees with me on this, that something happened to those people. They saw something that led them to believe that they saw an unknown creature or something mysterious, and that's what they reported. So you can't just completely throw it out as hallucination or people trying to make stuff up. So, given that, we're left with, just what was it? So there's a number of options. It was, a person dressed up trying to perpetrate a hoax, which, again, I don't think it would be possible to do this many number of times, running across in front of cars. It's just not a hoax. It could have been a Bigfoot that was called the Lizard Man. I know, explaining one cryptid with another cryptid to some people is going to sound ridiculous, but I think there are a lot more Bigfoot reports and a lot more substance to that. So, it's possible we saw a swamp-dwelling Bigfoot. Or, beyond that, there could be things and creatures that we just simply can't explain or that are unknown to us. And maybe this was an example of that.
So many questions, so many possibilities, but I guess we're not going to even try to figure out what those possibilities are, at least for now. We got more creatures to explore or to avoid in our next segment. Lyle Blackburn joins Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are GCN.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for under $30,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet under $30,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100 foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Take delivery in spring. 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
We live in a complicated society. Stressful issues are always popping up. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone? Have you ever been overcharged for a repair? Have you ever signed a contract or a document? Worried about identity theft? How many times have you been in those unique situations where you just wanted to call an attorney to find out if you're right or wrong, or what your legal rights are? But every time you think about calling an attorney, what do you think about first? That's right. Who do you call, and how much will it cost? Our friends at Legal Shield have found a solution. With a nationwide network of 6,900 attorneys who average 19 years of experience, Legal Shield's law firms take over 40,000 calls per week helping their members. For less than $20 per month, you can have access to Legal Shield on everything from the trivial to the traumatic. Let Legal Shield stand up for your rights at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com. Or call 855-340-SAVE, 855-340-7283.
A little over a year ago, I began to do a lot of research into why, even if I had a pretty good-sized meal, that I was still starving. And my research led me to a well-known fact that most of the soils that we grow our crops on here in the United States and across the industrialized world are almost completely depleted of almost all of the key minerals and trace elements that our bodies need to rebuild themselves, fight off cancer, and be healthy. I then searched out the best vitamin and mineral company out there and discovered Youngevity. The Youngevity products are designed to give you the real nutrition you need, and once you've got that, you don't have to eat as much to be satisfied. I've lost 37 pounds in 2 months, simply getting the vitamins and minerals I need. Check it out for yourself. It's incredible. Go to InfoWarsTeam.com today and order your first canister of Beyond Tangy Tangerine Complete Multivitamin Mineral Complex Dietary Supplement. That's InfoWarsTeam.com.
Hello, this is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Gene and Chris on the Paracast. We're exploring the lizard man and all sorts of legendary creatures. Or critters with Lyle Blackburn. Chris, you have a question that you'd like to ask.
Well, I want, before we go on to Boggy Creek, which I really want to cover with you, because this is one of the more well-known cases in cryptozoology. They made a movie about it. In fact, I think a couple of movies. Before we go on, though, let's talk about the lizard man archetype, or that symbol within the human sort of experience. You've done some backstory work, I'm sure, researching these types of reports down through history. Do we have any other examples of outbreaks of this type of humanoid form anywhere from else around the world? And then we'll talk about David Icke's claim that lizard people run the world.
You mean they don't?
Well, see, you'll never know. See, it's just an endless question, like chasing your lizard tail. So there's never been another outbreak of quote-unquote lizard man sightings that had the substance of the Bishopville case. Now, there's some other fleeting reports around the U.S. of these type creatures. There was an incident that occurred in 1958 in Riverside, California, in which a man claimed he had seen a creature roughly fitting this description run across the road in front of him. It came up out of the Santa Ana River. There is reports of a creature near Thetis Lake in British Columbia that came to be called the Thetis Lake Monster, and it was sort of a diminutive type gnomish reptilian humanoid creature. But there was only 2 sightings of that, and those were rather dubious at best. We talked about the Loveland frog, which occurred in Loveland, Ohio, which I don't think relates to this. It's a good story, and there's some spooky sightings involved with that. Again, no amount of extended investigations or mass sightings ever occurred with that. In Ohio, the Ohio River, there's been a few reports of sort of these creature from the Black Lagoon type creatures, but just not enough sightings or data or footprint casts or anything like that to really compare to the others. You can only just sort of lay out the stories of these and come to the conclusion that the Bishopville creature is not an isolated case. People have reported seeing creatures like this throughout the modern U.S. history. So, it's definitely an ongoing mystery.
Well, you bring up U.S. history. How about South America, Asia, any place in Africa where humanoid-looking, bipedal, humanoid reptilian types have been reported? Do we have any body of evidence that suggests that this is a worldwide phenomenon, or is this just something that's exclusively in North America?
Specifically in South America, I did try to look into that because, I kind of talk about our archetype of the movie monster, the creature from the Black Lagoon, swamp thing type, creatures. And in the case of the creature from the Black Lagoon, it was reportedly influenced by a story that the producer had heard about a creature that had lived in South America. And I looked long and hard to find some better information on that. And all I could find was a scant, tale that seemed very much rooted in folklore, sort of a merman type thing that came to the village every so often. And it was very folklore. I mean, as opposed to what you would consider cryptozoology, like sightings and a long history. So that's as far as I could get with that one in South America. I did not look in great detail at the general world, China and other places. So I can't say that there's not sightings of these creatures elsewhere, and I'm sure there are. And I also ruled out things like sightings that corresponded to UFOs. So to where I thought it would be an extraterrestrial type creature, I kept this in the realm of cryptozoology. Right. Because
there have been a number of claims. Pamela Stonebrook, of course, comes to mind, claiming she had a reptilian lover and he was really good in bed and all that sort of thing.
Kind of slimy, though, don't you think?
Well, we won't get into graphic details on that one, but you should put blinders on in terms of your focus and really look at what appear to be on the surface some sort of cryptozoological reptoidal type form. Well, Boggy Creek. Now, this is something that a lot of people are interested in. We've got a number of questions on our forums about the legend of Boggy Creek. Why don't you give us a quick thumbnail sketch of this particular, I can't really call it a case because it's a lot more involved than that, but give us our first-time listeners maybe who have never heard of Boggy Creek, give them a thumbnail sketch of what we're talking about.
Well, the Boggy Creek Monster, or as it's better known as the Fouke Monster, is a creature reportedly seen near the small town of Fouke, Arkansas, which is in southwest Arkansas, just across the border from Texas. This creature basically became publicly known in the early 1970s when sightings were recounted in the Texarkana Gazette newspaper. That led to a film director by the name of Charles Pierce coming down there and making a film called The Legend of Boggy Creek. And that movie was released in 1972 and became hugely successful in the 1970s. Went on to play in the movie theaters and drive-ins and on TV all throughout the 70s, made $25 million.
I saw it in high school, actually, although I was otherwise engaged in the front seat. I didn't see much of the movie.
Tell us more, Chris. No, I'm not going to ask you to do that. The point being also that amount of money for a movie doesn't sound like much today. I mean, if a movie only makes $25 million the first weekend, it's considered a possible failure. But this is a long time ago.
Sure, and considering he only spent $160,000 to make it. But point being that this made the Fouke Monster quite famous, and The Legend of Boggy Creek is a movie that, people of a certain age all pretty much remember. I mean, countless people come up to me at book sightings and say, "Oh man, I saw that as a kid. It scared the crap out of me," or whatever. So, they say about it, but it's quite famous. So, there. Behind all of this, and the tagline of the movie was a true story, it was based on real reports by real people that were dramatized in the movie. And as someone who saw it when I was a little kid in the drive-in, I always remembered it. I loved the movie. Obviously, I was, loved Bigfoot, so this was something that was more close to my hometown. As an adult and doing this kind of work, I wanted to look into it and sort out just what was true about it. How far back did the sightings of the creature go? Is it still sighted today? And that's the exploration I go through in my book.
Give us a kind of a blow-by-blow description. Who saw it first? What was the most celebrated sighting? Give us a description of the creature. Give us a little bit of background on what kind of terrain that we're talking about here in Arkansas. Kind of set the stage a little bit here and give our first-time listeners something that they can kind of grab a hold of?
Well, the creature is generally described as being about 7 feet tall. It's covered in hair. The hair color, ranges from black to brown. Generally described as having longish hair, kind of a southern Sasquatch type description. It's often associated with having a foul odor, not unlike the skunk ape, and is described as having ape-like features, but walking upright on 2 legs like a man. So again, it's basically a Bigfoot type creature that lives in Arkansas. And the area where it is seen in Fouke, backs up to the Sulphur River bottoms, and that is a very remote and swampy bottomland area that even today is something where a lot of people don't settle. There's a lot of area there where large animals could remain elusive. The most celebrated sighting occurred in 1971.
We'll go back to 1971, back through time, back in our time machine in a moment. We have Lyle Blackburn. We're exploring the Beast of Boggy Creek. I almost feel it's right beside me right now. No, that's my dog, and he's white, and he's small and cute. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast. Great minds think alike. The network for the independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
It's that time of year again, and you know what that means. Cold and flu season. But don't worry, herbalhealer.com has you and your loved ones covered with our safe and natural products. Cold and flu fighters like beta-glucans, olive leaf antiviral capsules, grapefruit seed extract, HHA 4-herb capsules, elderberry power, and respirate. And don't forget about Oregacillin for the lungs, normally $34.95, on sale now for only $25. Vitamin D3 120-count soft gels, only $9. Whole body and homeopathic detoxes for the lungs, kidneys, liver, lymph, and brain, normally $26.95, now just $20. Herbalhealer.com also offers correspondence courses to teach you how to handle your health naturally. And as always, new customers get a free 128-page catalog with your order. Visit herbalhealer.com and click the Winter Specials button to save on our natural cold and flu fighting products. Herbalhealer.com, healing the world with nature, one person at a time, since 1988.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Chris is doing his best Beast of Boggy Creek imitation. I'll tell you, with Lyle Blackburn, his first book was The Beast of Boggy Creek. Earlier, we were exploring Lizard Man. So, Lyle, let's look at the surroundings. It's not a place that anyone really wants to visit or move into, unless you're being, I guess, pursued by the law. But there are no cabins or things like that out there.
No. I mean, a lot of people like to go there, and, Bigfoot enthusiasts often go to Fouke. It's like the Mecca of Southern Bigfoot. But no, you're not going to find cabins or motels or anything. It's definitely very rural, certainly was in the early 70s, and is still, a small, off-the-way town.
Sounds like a pretty Fouked up place to live.
Yeah. So, but basically, the most famous sighting occurred in 1971. A family by the name of Ford moved to the town for work, and there was actually a couple of families, and the guys were gone at night, and over a few progressive evenings, the women had heard something stalking around on the porch that they thought was walking on two legs that seemed to be large, and on one evening it actually stuck its hand, a hairy hand or a paw or something, through the window. So, of course, they were scared out of their minds, and this all culminated with the guys borrowing a shotgun for the landlord and confronting the creature on a Saturday night in May of 1971. And they ended up taking some shots at it from the porch, and they weren't sure if they hit it. So the guys went down to the edge of the woods to look. Well, this was three guys, one of them being the younger brother, Bobby Ford. Well, as they were looking around, they couldn't find any blood or any evidence they had hit it. Bobby was getting really spooked out. He's thinking, man, if we missed that thing and it's standing over there in the woods, it's freaking me out. I'm going back to the porch. Here's the light. You guys, keep looking. So as he's heading back up to the house, something comes around the edge of the porch and engages him in a struggle, basically, and he ends up getting free and nearly jumping through the front door. Now, he thought that what he was attacked by was some sort of a human-like, ape-like creature. He had scratches. He was banged up. So they took him to the Texarkana Hospital, where he was treated for minor injuries and shock. Well, you got the doctor down there saying, what happened. He says, I was attacked by a hairy monster in Fouke. Well, the doctor calls the local news media guy and said, hey, man, I got a guy down here who says he was attacked by a hairy monster. You should go check it out. And that's what happened. And the news got involved. That got printed in the paper. And that's what kind of put it on the map. But once this all came out, the old-timers basically said, hey, this isn't the first time this type of thing's been reported. Don't y'all remember back in the 60s, there was a whole huge flap of sightings about 5 miles southwest of here in Jonesville. Well, this started, brewing up all the old sightings, sort of like the Lizard Man case, where there had been a lot of stuff going on. They just didn't tell the newspaper. However, there was many, many sightings, and most people generally believe that the Fouke monster sightings began in the 1940s, or that's what you used to find if you searched the internet. However, I found that there were sightings back to at least 1908 in this area. Another false impression was that the sightings ended after the movie came out and, things died down. Well, what I found that there was sightings that continued in the 80s, 90s, all the way until today, some of these even more dramatic than what the Fords experienced. So it's something that hasn't stopped. It's just that the movie kind of ran its course and the media moved on. And, most people didn't hear of it until my book came out. And that sort of filled in all the gaps and brought the whole entire history of this to the forefront again.
That leads us to a question from one of our forum posters, Burnt State, and he kind of points out something interesting, which I would like you to address. And he says, the Fouke monster is unique for its three-toed impressions, which kind of reminds us of, our Lizard Man report from South Carolina. And did the earlier Jonestown monster that the Fouke monster is connected to also leave behind three-toed prints? And are you aware of any examples of other three-toed Sasquatch footprints?
Yes. The creature, the Fouke monster, yes, is associated with having three-toed tracks. And a lot of this was based on a trackway that was found in the summer of 1971, shortly after the Ford incident, in which the creature had presumably walked across a freshly plowed bean field. And this is dramatized in The Legend of Boggy Creek. I go into great detail in my book about this, obviously. That was, the best example of three-toed tracks. Some of the other sightings, the sheriff thought that he found some three-toed tracks. They weren't, very defined, so they weren't sure. In another case, a person thought that it had four toes. Now, in more recent times, I met a witness down there who actually cast a really good five-toed print. So when you start dealing with this whole three-toed aspect of the Fouke monster, it really expands into the southern Sasquatch in general, because three-toed tracks are found elsewhere. And I do know researchers who have found three-toed tracks. They've cast these. They've said that, they believe them to be tracks. However, you also find a lot of five-toed tracks as well. So it's hard to reconcile just what the three-toed track represents. Is it a certain individual who has a deformity? Is this something from these small populations being inbred, or the three-toed tracks, hoaxes? And with some dubious business going on with this famous trackway found in Fouke that you can read more about in the book. But it's not unlike some of the lizard man stuff. And again, you got a swamp. Fouke is near a place called Mercer Bayou and the Sulphur River bottom, so you have a swampy area. Suddenly you have three-toed tracks. So definitely fascinating, but there's just not enough examples of it to really ultimately decide if all the creatures in the area have three toes, or if it's just one with a deformity, or if this is one incident that simply isn't real.
You mentioned in your research that you found alleged sighting reports anecdotally that go all the way back into the early 20th century. What are we talking about here? Give us a sense of the geography of the area. Where did all these reports that have been, filed over the years, are they all centered around a particular area, Boggy Creek? Do we have any sort of indication that whatever this hypothetical group of humanoid creatures, have they expanded? Are they location specific? And, the whole thing about three toes, unless you're a dinosaur, it would be kind of difficult to to be able to negotiate that kind of terrain with only three toes, I would think. But give us a sense of the area around Boggy Creek and where the other anecdotal sighting reports have come from.
Well, it's really within about a 20 square mile area where most of the sightings have taken place, and I've plotted these on a detailed map, so I'm quite familiar where each one had occurred. In general, they occur south of Fouke, which would encompass that Jonesville area that our listener asked about, all the way down to the end of Mercer Bayou. And the first sighting in 1908 happened down at the bottom end of Mercer Bayou, the most southern point. And that was a small girl reporting that she had seen some sort of a hairy man, which is, kind of a sketchy report. But going up in the 20s and 30s and 40s, you start getting more of these same kind of things. And they would range generally in that Mercer Bayou area, and near the Sulphur River as well.
We have Lyle Blackburn. His books are The Beast of Boggy Creek and Lizard Man. Right now we're focusing on The Beast of Boggy Creek, which makes me not want to be visiting Arkansas anytime soon. Okay, with Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Hi, this is Steve Spillum for Midas Resources. In 1971, President Nixon took the United States off the gold standard and put us into a fiat currency. This allowed Congress and the Federal Reserve to create trillions of dollars out of thin air. The national debt has risen to incredible heights, and your hard-earned dollars by a small fraction of what they once did. The average life expectancy for a fiat currency is 27 years. The dollar is failing and on borrowed time. When currencies fall, people turn to gold and silver because gold and silver have been real money for more than 5,000 years. It is our mission at Midas Resources to help you preserve your capital. Don't let your personal savings shrink to nothing. For important free information on how you can protect your personal wealth, contact me, Steve Spillum, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 308. Call today while we are still accepting dollars for gold and silver. 1-800-686-2237, extension 308. Make a change in your financial security today. That's 1-800-686-2237, extension 308.
In the U.S., 1 in every 50 homes will have a break-in this year. Burglars call it smash and grab. Police call it robbery. We call it avoidable. We are Fake TV, a simple electronic device that can fool even professional burglars. Fake TV easily plugs into any outlet and simulates the changing colors of a television. To a burglar, it looks like someone must be home watching TV, so they'll likely move on to an easier target. At only $29.95, Fake TV costs less than a month of most alarm monitoring plans and comes with free shipping. Order your Fake TV by calling 877-5-FAKE-TV or go to faketv.com. That's 877-532-5388 or faketv.com. Fake TV, the burglar deterrent.
There are many things the human body can do very well, but maintaining the proper pH level isn't always one of them. That's where AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops can make a world of difference. AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops helps your body do what's natural. Just a few drops a day helps rid your body of harmful waste and acid while promoting health and restoring vibrance and energy. Alkalizing boosts your immune system and can help fight headaches, irritability, cramping, and insomnia. Alkalizing also helps the body fight depression and even bone loss. To learn more about the importance of alkalizing and how you can find life-changing and vital balance, please visit AlkaVision's brand new website at alkavision.com. Same great products, but now easier to use and more informative than ever before. To get your very own plasma pH drops for just $29.95, call 800-518-7615 or visit alkavision.com. That's ALKA vision.com. Alkalize your body and supercharge your health at the new alkavision.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Hey, we have this group of people here, of which our guest is now joining this illustrious crew. Brad Steiger, Nick Redfern, Red Pill Junkie, and even Bryce Sable. Okay, on the Paracast this week, it's all monsters all the time. You know what bothers me a little bit about all this is you have these little pockets of cases that become suddenly famous, like Boggy Creek, like the Lizard Man in South Carolina, like, of course, Mothman in West Virginia. Is there a reason at all in your research? Can you determine why they seem to show up in these little pockets around the country?
Well, I'm not sure. Part of it is just, what happens to get in the paper. And I mean, these creatures are identified suddenly with some regional name, such as the Fouke monster, and it's being printed in the paper as such. And I think people have some impression that the Fouke, because it's called the Fouke monster, that it's something different than, say, a southern Sasquatch creature from Texas. Down there, they call them, the Caddo critter or the Sabine thing. But, basically, they're the same thing. I mean, they're described in a similar way. If you start looking at the map, you see that all these waterways and forest areas connect together. So whereas one town may call it one thing or, another town calls it the other, really we're just talking about southern Sasquatch creatures. not necessarily a whole bunch of varied and different primate or ape-like creatures. So a lot of it just depends on what gets in the paper. And of course, in the case of the Legend of Boggy Creek, where you have a famous movie made about it, it stands as sort of an iconic creature unto itself, the Fouke monster. But, essentially, if you start looking into these in great detail, you find that, you're just kind of dealing with southern Sasquatch or a skunk ape in a more general sense. They don't recognize town names or borders or states or anything like that. And they may move, obviously, up and down waterways and through forest areas from one town to another.
Let me ask you a question here which bothers me. And that is, we have all these very fascinating reports over the years of strange creatures. We've got the lizard man, we've got the Mothman, Beast of Boggy Creek, Bigfoot, whatever. But it doesn't seem as if investigators are really getting us any closer to a conclusion as to what's going on. Is there a better approach, do you think?
Well, it might be time for a better approach, because you're right. You're not getting any closer. And it's funny, if you go back and watch a show, say from the 1970s, a show In Search Of, for example. It was a show that ran on television. It was narrated by Leonard Nimoy. It was quite popular. You look at that, and you look at a modern-day show such as Monster Quest, which was a great show. It was about the same subject of cryptozoology and unexplained monsters. You look at those two, and, they're very similar. You realize that what they were doing back in the 70s was pretty much what we're doing today. It's no different. We do have some more sophisticated equipment and gear to use nowadays, but the approach is the same. The dedication by these researchers is the same. What we know about these creatures is still the same. So I'm not sure what more there can be done to, to really facilitate the proof of these things. They just tend to remain just on the edge, of our civilization, just on the edge of our grasp. It's still a mystery. It's an ongoing mystery. And, maybe something that will just continue like this forever. I don't know. Or, but other than a body coming forth to where we can ultimately scientifically examine it, it's just going to remain just out of the hands of these researchers.
Now, let me say something funny. Don't take it as an insult. But hasn't it been said that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's one definition of insanity?
Possibly.
All right. Well, one thing that comes up occasionally is possible DNA testing. If we have another species here, not discovered, and they're crawling all over the place, what about a DNA sample? Let's see if we can't get evidence of something strange.
Well, and that's something that they are doing. DNA is really starting to come into the picture because it's more affordable, and there's people that are actually, reputable scientists that are actually willing to look at DNA evidence submitted from, Bigfoot samples and things. So that's definitely something on our side. But ultimately it's going to take a quality sample in order to produce the right results. And to get that sample, you got researchers out in the woods just looking for the proverbial needle in the haystack to find one little hair or one piece of skin or what have you in order to get and extract the DNA out of. And so far, even samples with the best intentions have been either A, contaminated, or they come up to be something like bear or wolf or something, that we didn't really want to hear, but that's the facts. DNA and science don't lie. So, we do have those tools, but you're still depending on amateur researchers using their own funds to go out in the woods and, against all odds, try to get themselves a little piece of a creature that has been successful in eluding everybody now for all this time.
Right.
You wonder, though, whether maybe what investigators of this sort ought to be doing is take a course in crime scene investigation, learn how to gather the samples. Certainly, if you're not professional, we understand the samples could be contaminated, especially out in a place where lots of creatures are roaming around. How do you get the sample? That's the one that will give you the smoking gun. but is there no way to possibly take some extra courses in that subject? Maybe learn a few techniques that will help you, because where are we going now?
Right. I mean, there are researchers out there that are familiar with those techniques, and if they find a sample, they are going to follow the protocol that science recommends on data collection. So, but again, you're just talking a wide range of people with interests into the subject, most being amateurs. It's just sort of up to them to think, oh, well, maybe I should take a course on data collection. I should, know more about evidence collection and things like that. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't. I get, photos of hair sent to me. I found this hair and I don't know what it is. Well, they're holding it in their hand. I'm like, oh, if it's, it's already been contaminated, so people just get excited and don't think about these things. Whereas, longtime researchers, and there are quite a few of those, they do know these techniques and they will observe them when possible. So you just have such a wide range of people looking into it.
Well, what do you think of Melba Ketchum's DNA study and how this particular project has been handled?
That's a question which we'll have to have answered in our next segment about that particular DNA study and about the implications. Lyle Blackburn is joining us. We're looking for strange creatures around the world with Gene and Chris is not a strange creature, but sometimes I have my doubts about myself. You're in the Paracast.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
For over 5 years, you've been hearing about the Berkey Guy, so you may know a few things about him. For example, you are well aware of the superior quality and effectiveness of Berkey water filters and accessories. But did you know the Berkeys have had independent lab tests done to prove just how effective they are? It's true, and he can email you the test results. Just visit goberkey.com. You may also know that the Berkey Guy has helped tens of thousands of people get better prepared. Now here's something you may not know. GoBerkey.com has amazing specials and deals all the time on a wide variety of survival and preparedness products. Most ready to ship same day. Visit the Berkey Guy at goberkey.com and be sure to click the red Products on Sale Now button. You can always call toll-free 877-886-3653. Again, that's 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com, home of the Berkey Guy.
Now you can get the same survival food U.S. Special Forces use on their toughest field missions. High-protein, high-energy, freeze-dried foods known as long-range patrol rations or LRPs. Soldiers love LRP rations. They're lightweight and easy to carry. Easy to prepare by just adding water. Easy to enjoy because they taste great. Civilians love LRPs as a solution for emergency preparedness and recreational activities with limited storage space, such as hiking, climbing, sailing, or RV travel. Veteran-owned Freeze Dry Guy is your exclusive source for this 2013 U.S. military overrun. Long on nutrition, these delicious entrees have a long shelf life, lasting decades. But this rare opportunity, this limited supply, will not last long. You have to act now. Call 866-404-3663, 866-404-FOOD, or log on now to freezedryguy.com, freezedryguy.com.
It's that time of year again, and you know what that means. Cold and flu season. But don't worry, herbalhealer.com has you and your loved ones covered with our safe and natural products. Cold and flu fighters like beta-glucans, olive leaf antiviral capsules, grapefruit seed extract, HHA 4-herb capsules, elderberry power, and respirate. And don't forget about oregacillin for the lungs, normally $34.95, on sale now for only $25. Vitamin D3 120-count soft gels, only $9. Whole body and homeopathic detoxes for the lungs, kidneys, liver, lymph, and brain, normally $26.95, now just $20. Herbalhealer.com also offers correspondence courses to teach you how to handle your health naturally. And as always, new customers get a free 128-page catalog with your order. Visit herbalhealer.com and click the Winter Specials button to save on our natural cold and flu fighting products. Herbalhealer.com, healing the world with nature, one person at a time, since 1988.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
Strange creatures and more. Gene and Chris talking to Lyle Blackburn. So Lyle and Chris had a question for you.
So yeah, I think the Ketchum study has been handled terribly. I mean, unfortunately, and you know, I don't pretend to be a scientist. I'm not going to read that paper and make any sort of levy judgment against it. I can only rely on the feedback from people who are trained and respected scientists who have made comments on this. And, you know, judging from that, you know, even if that was, you know, a viable study, unfortunately, it was not handled in the protocol that mainstream science embraces, you know, the release of the journal. And there's just a whole lot of aspects that.
Excuse me, folks, we're getting into the inside baseball game here. We've got to tell our listeners what the Ketchum study is all about, and then we can go more into the flaws. Lyle?
Well, basically, Melba Ketchum is a veterinarian that lives in East Texas, and she has taken it upon herself to, you know, do some scientific studies into Bigfoot. And they did a Bigfoot genome study, which collected various evidence and did DNA testing upon it, and to try to prove that Bigfoot is real, basically. And samples were taken from many different sources, and I know some of those sources are very reliable, and they were, you know, given over in good faith and things like that. But you're at the mercy of the people who are testing this. So the results of this DNA study were published in a journal, not a known scientific journal, but a journal that they created themselves with which to publish findings. Ouch, number one. So, you know, right off the bat, just by the way it's presented, most reputable scientists are just not going to pay any attention to it. They're going to say, yeah, it's par for the course with Bigfoot people. You know, they don't follow the right stuff. You know,
they use terms like angel DNA, which totally baffled me.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it just gets far-fetched real quick. I mean, you know, and that just turns people away from it. But, you know, judging from what other scientists, Todd Disotell, people like that have said, they just feel like it's, you know, it's just not a valid study. The results are dubious at best, and these things build up a lot of hype for a couple of years as people hear about them, but once it comes out, it just sort of dies a slow whimpering death because it doesn't do anything except make the science of Bigfoot look even worse, unfortunately. So it's just not something that's helped anything, even if there was some good evidence.
We do have some reputable scientists like Jeffrey Meldrum, who has put his reputation as a certified and an accredited scientist. I think he's at the University of Idaho. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we do have some scientific interest in this particular subject. What do we have to do to take this thing to the next level so that academia and the scientific community will be kind of slam dunked into having to take this subject seriously? What do we need to do, Lyle?
Yeah, I mean, guys like Dr. Meldrum are a big credit to, Bigfoot research as a whole. I mean, his expertise is in footprint analysis, locomotion of, bipedal creatures. So, he's not a DNA guy, but he's a good spokesperson for, the science of Bigfoot. But ultimately, I mean, at this point, Bigfoot is a pop cultural icon. Scientists, it's got a stigma to it. Understandably so. There's been so much nonsense and hoax and silly stuff involved in it. Most scientists just are not going to listen anymore to any nonsense unless you have a piece of a creature, an extremely clear video, which would be, questionable at best, just because you're really going to need a body to prove it. It's just at this point, that's what it's going to take before mainstream science. And I'm not saying go out and kill a Bigfoot to get a body. I'm just saying that's what it's going to take, whether you find a piece or find a finger or a hair or something where it's a definitive, sample that can create a DNA signature that can be verified as unknown.
Lyle, I've been monitoring a thread at forum.theparacast.com where our listeners can ask our guests questions. One of the threads has been kind of zeroing in on this whole anomaly of hunters allegedly seeing a Bigfoot, having them, in their rifle scope, and then not taking the shot. We do have a handful of cases where hunters have claimed to have tried to take down a Bigfoot. But don't you think that, someone like getting a headshot on a Bigfoot, going and dragging that thing down to the nearest hospital, forensic lab, sheriff's office, whatever, do you think that would, for once and for all, establish that this is a flesh and blood cryptozoological creature? And why haven't we seen that up until now?
Oh, yeah. That would end the debate right there. And that's, there are newly discovered species of primates, coming out of Africa and things like this. And the way they're proven is somebody's got a body, or something like that. So that's the same thing with Bigfoot. If somebody drags
they usually
one
find
out
it
of the woods,
in a local market being sold as food.
Yep. Yeah. Something like that. The locals don't know it's, a rare and uncatalogued primate. They just see it and then there it is. So, but the situation with hunters, that's a puzzling thing. Is you do have reports of many hunters having Bigfoot sightings, and many of these occurring when they're in the tree stand and they've got their rifle there and they've got it, in the sights of their scope. I talked to a witness I was interviewing just last week who was in that very position, and I said, why did you not shoot it? You could prove it. He said, I thought about it. I looked at it. He said, it was just so astounding at what I was looking at. He thought, what if I miss? What if I shoot? It doesn't take it down. What if there's others standing, in the trees that I can't see? If I shoot that thing, I just don't know what's going to happen. Not only that, what if it's the chance that this is somehow related to humans or whatever? I don't want to be drag this down and then be thrown in jail for murder. There's just so many questions that you've got to confront.
Some of that sounds like an excuse, though, like maybe they're closely related to humans and I'll be arrested for murdering a Bigfoot. And I don't know, that might be a stretch. But the other thing people might ask here is, all right, these are living beings. They live, they die, no corpses? Never a corpse anywhere. Why?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. I mean, a lot of people, the arguments that usually, well, when's the last time you found a dead bear in the woods? Well, not very often, certainly, but it has happened. And, bears can be proven. So it's one of those things that's extremely puzzling and doesn't really add up. The fact that we don't have a body doesn't disprove it, of course, and that's kind of what keeps that carrot dangling that, well, you got to keep looking. People say they see them, so, hey, there must be something to it. So, but why that none of them have been hit by a car, not one hunter has actually shot one and dragged it out of the woods. Now, hunters say they've shot it, but they just didn't bring it in.
So these hunters in particular didn't have a problem in shooting them. They didn't worry about being attacked by masked Bigfoot or being arrested by the police for murdering a Bigfoot. We'll get into more of this in a moment. We have Lyle Blackburn here for one more segment with Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
Free from the shackles of corporate America, we're the place for independent thinkers. GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best. Available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for under $30,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet under $30,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100 foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Take delivery in spring. 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
Hi, this is Steve Sanchez, and based on a recent study, it was found that 57 million Americans had legal issues over the last 12 months, but only 60% of those studied sought out the services of a lawyer. Why? In a nutshell, affordability. Well, my friends at Legal Shield have created a solution that can help you not if, but when you need an attorney. For as little as $17 per month, Legal Shield will provide you unlimited access to qualified attorneys at an accomplished law firm for advice and counsel on legal issues, no matter how serious or trivial. For over 40 years and with 1.4 million families across North America, Legal Shield can help you, the loyal GCN listener. Representatives are standing by now to answer your questions, so call them now at 1-855-340-SAVE. That's 1-855-340-7283, or visit them at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com.
Pharmacist Ben Fouke knows the importance of proper digestion.
Make sure you take a look at the Ultimate Enzyme product.
They're made with bile salts and fat digestion enzymes and protein digestive enzymes. And not only do the ultimate enzymes give you obvious benefits for digestion, but they can also help keep your blood flowing through your circulatory system. As most of you probably know by now, thick, sludgy, clotting blood is a serious risk factor for heart disease and stroke. Clearly, inappropriate and excessive blood clotting is a major health issue, and thick, sludgy blood is not just about heart health either. Sludgy blood can compromise oxygenation and nutrient delivery to all your cells and tissues and organs, and ultimately lead to almost any health issue you can name.
Concerned about proper digestion and heart health? Order Ultimate Enzymes by calling 866-735-2470. That's 866-735-2470 or on the web at brightsideben.com. That's brightsideben.com. Order today.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Monster Hunting with Lyle Blackburn, exploring the case at Boggy Creek, the Lizard Man, and all these monsters, trying to find some evidence about what's going on. And the question is here, we know you've done the books, you continue to write about the subject, but what about the fact here that so far we haven't discovered any new evidence, just more case histories? What keeps you going?
Well, I think for me personally is I have fun with the subject. I mean, first and foremost, you know, I like the stories. They're spooky. They make, you know, great conversations. Interviewing witnesses that tell you they've seen basically what is a monster lurking in the woods is fun. And so I have to think that I wouldn't want to be so darn serious and after, 40 years of research, think that I've wasted my time. So the camaraderie between researchers is great. Getting out camping, getting in the woods, exploring the outdoors, the thrill that you might see something unknown is a great allure. And me and my friends enjoy that. Now, on top of that, if we really did find proof, evidence, a photo, or if I could just see one with my own eyes, would be amazing. And there is that chance, but, if that never happens, I'm not losing anything. I think that I've brought forth good stories in my book. I've met a lot of very cool people, interesting people, and that's what keeps me going as far as the research, even in the face of such improbability and such questions and puzzles as we've raised here in the last hour.
Well, we know, of course, that most people who write books on this subject don't become millionaires. So we assume that you have to put some money together to make these trips. So you just travel on the cheap or what?
Well, yeah, I definitely, try to be economical about it. And certainly the books, I don't make a huge profit, and it's something that usually gets rolled back into the research, hence the fact that I have to take freelance writing jobs and things like that. I just can't exist off writing these kind of books. But I just love doing it, and that's, it's, again, I have a good time with it, so I can forego the wishes to be a millionaire with it. But it is certainly costly. And I mean, I've seen comments on the internet that I'm trying to cash in on, the legend of Boggy Creek or something. I'm like, cash in, buddy. How much time and money?
Man, what a joke.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I've seen all kinds of and this is the nature of the internet. I mean, not everybody likes what you do, but I just see some ridiculous
there's
stuff.
a huge peanut gallery in the internet. You have to kind of just put them out of your mind sometimes.
You're not saying here that their minds are as small as peanuts.
Well, that too, but there's a huge peanut gallery that is willing and able, and I mean, they'll jump all over you just for expressing an interest in a subject. I mean, let alone getting out of their armchair and actually going out and doing the research. Lyle, do you know J.C. Johnson?
Yes.
We had JC on a couple of weeks ago, and boy, I'll tell you, we have a very up-to-speed listenership out there, and on the forums here at forum.theparacast.com, a lot of people really wanted to take JC and his presentation of his investigative efforts to task. Now, I'll tell you, I have heard a lot of stories in my time, and if you add them all up, JC can top them. What do you think about someone like JC, who is sitting, and I'll be the first to admit, he's sitting in an area of the country that is really high strange. But what do you take someone like JC, who is so over the top and so, sitting around the campfire style, that it's very difficult to take anything that he says, without a huge block of salt. You seem much more circumspect. What do you think of researchers and investigators like JC?
Again, this is, something that has a wide range of people that are attracted to the subject, and researchers vary dramatically in their approach. Some more scientific, some more dramatic. But I try to look at, I try not to be the peanut gallery. I try not to, judge people's or jump to conclusions about stuff, because we are dealing with high strangeness, as you say, and there really are no right or wrong answers, and we're really not, unless somebody's looked into that case and talked to those witnesses and knows more about it, you really can't just dismiss it. Now, you can definitely, I try to focus on what I believe to be the most credible sources and the most credible stories, and focus on that, because there's plenty of them. You really don't have to get ridiculous. So, but JC's been doing it a long time, and he knows he's smart about the subject, and I respect his research, and I respect the research of what everybody else has done, save for somebody who's like purporting hoaxes or parading bodies around the U.S.
Well, Lyle, hold on. Wait a minute. JC has been hot on the trail of a group of centaurs. He claims that I think it's like some little retreat center or monastery with a priest and acolytes living in a remote area of New Mexico, have been seeing centaurs. Have you ever heard, ever, of a centaur report, except for some sort of Greek myth or something?
Okay, let's sit down for this. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for the response from Lyle.
Okay, yeah, the centaur. Well, I don't know about that. I'm not really up on his centaur investigation, so I'm not totally qualified to comment on that. Now, I just don't know, but I can tell you that people report some really bizarre stuff, and then this is coming from somebody.
Okay, let me ask you this: if you saw a horse with the upper body of a human instead of a horse head, and you had a 30-06, would you take that sucker down or what?
I guess so. I'd be thinking like Clash of the Titans, the gods might punish me for this, but I mean, I don't even know what to think about. That's so off my radar. I'm just way more down to earth. If I hear a centaur report, I don't know. I'd have to hear it straight up. But again, I'm the type of person that I don't have time to debunk everybody's goings-ons. If I'm face to face with a researcher and they tell me about it, then I can make a much more better judgment. I might think they're crazy, but until then, I just say, "That's your case, man." And if you can prove it, great. I mean,
do what thou willst.
Yes, that's your deal.
Well, I know JC. JC actually is a friend, and I've spent some time with him. I've done some work out in the field with him, and I'll tell you, I have never met a guy that's more enthralling around a campfire than this guy. I mean, it doesn't matter what the subject is, he's got one for you.
Yeah, and that's his forte, and that's awesome. And it at the end of the day, again, it's all great mysteries, and we're just trying to sort through them as best we can. So
okay, so what's up for you in the future here? What is on your radar? We've only got about a minute left. Give us a sense of where you're going with your particular research.
I'm looking into writing a book that's more of a general Southern Sasquatch type thing. So I'm still trying to sketch out exactly what I'm doing, but it will be a back to a Bigfoot book. I got some appearances coming up. I'll be at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference on April the 26th. and all that. So, but people can follow me by checking out my website, lyleblackburn.com, find out where to get my books, all that sort of stuff, and, send me some feedback if you like. If you've seen a centaur or a Bigfoot, just let me know.
Okay, so we're going to have a special show on centaur sightings, I think, at this point. Chris O'Brien can be found at OurStrangePlanet.com, and they're setting up the StalkingTheHerd.com site. It's already got its rudimentary features there. We've got a special section in our forum at forum.theparacast.com for Chris's new book. And if you go to theparacast.com, you can download every episode of the Paracast. Now, this week, I understand, in addition to GCN and Boost Radio Network, we'll be joining IRN Internet Radio Network for a wider reach for the Paracast. Lyle Blackburn, thank you for joining us on the Paracast.
Hey, yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed the conversation.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.